following program is an exclusive Disruption Networks production.
So you just bought your dream home, and now it's time to move. Let's face it, nobody likes to move. All the packing, unpacking, lifting, upstairs, downstairs, and broken everything, including your back. Let the professionals at EJA Moving Company take all the stress and pain out of your move. Competitively priced moving, relocation services, office moves, and complete packing and unpacking services. They work with everybody to make it simple and easy for you to move and relocate. Call EJA Moving Company at 315-335-0516. When it's time to relocate, have EJA Moving do all the work for you. Hit them up online, ejamoving.com.
Want to know what's going on at the D? Hit up DisruptionNetwork.net and check out our events calendar brought to you by the Events Co. Find out about upcoming guests, special events, concerts, show schedules, community activities, and more. Get connected at DisruptionNetwork.net.
Welcome to EC Radio Podcast. We would like to thank all of our sponsors for joining the Disruption team, and we hope that you will support all of our sponsors. And of course, we appreciate you listening to this program.
Only on the D!
What's cracking, everybody? How are ya? It's Tuesday. Tuesday on the D. Time to disrupt your afternoon. TC Radio time. We're getting into it today, man. I'm pretty excited about today. I've got my man, one of the co-hosts from Agent Paranormal, Peter Leonard, in the house with me. Before we get into it, much love to my sponsors. Thank you so much to Utica Coffee. Wake the hell up. And I'm telling you, I'm woke right now. That hazelnut coffee has got me feeling jittery today, man. I love it. I won't sleep today. I don't think I'll sleep. It's okay. I'll just keep drinking more coffee. Great product over there at Utica Coffee. Check them out, wakethehellup.com. Also, Saranac, thank you so much to Saranac. Thank you so much to EJA Moving Services. When you're ready to move and relocate, hit up Eddie and his crew, ejamoving.com. And also much love to Utica Hemp for supplying the area with CBD and helping people with their ailments. So, yes, it's me, Z. I'm making some adjustments here because some freaky shit's about to be talked about right now. Peter Leonard in the house with me. How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Good to see you.
Actually, I could use some of that wake the hell up. I just did an 8-hour shift of work.
Did you? Well, I appreciate you coming down and hang out with me, man. This is great.
Well, thank you for having me.
So back in, I want to say it's December, November, I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan. And I was watching Joe Rogan with Dan Aykroyd. And he was talking about the whole first half hour of that podcast was talking about aliens, Griffiths Air Force Base, Utica, Herkimer, like the whole area, Walesville. And I was like, I got to dive into the subject. I never knew about any of this stuff. There was a UFO crash in Walesville back in the 50s and all these other sightings in the 70s and all this that happened here. And I never knew about it until I heard that Dan Aykroyd podcast with Joe Rogan. I was like, I got to dive into this. I totally forgot about it. And then we teamed up with Agent Paranormal a couple weeks ago. And here you are. And Rich is telling me, well, Peter's an expert on all that. So here you are. And you're going to educate me and the rest of the EC Radio fan base today on the aliens at Griffiths Air Force Base. I think.
I have a lot to live up to. I don't really like the title expert because nobody knows everything.
That's true. That's true.
But I always find it very fascinating. We've had a major military base in our backyard, and nobody ever had a clue of what actually went on here.
Right.
Even people who worked there for 30 and 40 years.
It's almost like there was like this force field around it, and you couldn't get anywhere near it, right?
Absolutely. And then you go to a paranormal convention or you go somewhere and you're like, oh my God, Roman, that's Griffiths Air Force Base. It's like it's like the UFO Mecca. Like, you can actually go to a paranormal convention, say the word Griffiths, and people know exactly what you're talking about.
You're blowing my mind right now.
So over the years, I've heard many things, and maybe I'll share a few of those things. Hopefully the guys with the black suits and the briefcases aren't listening right now. And
You never know. They're watching us at all times.
But,
you got one of these, right? And then they're listening.
I know I'm probably going to have something on Facebook I need to purchase after we're done here. But
Well, let's back up a little bit. I want to talk about your accolades, though, because you've written a few books about paranormal, and you've been on shows such as The Haunted Collector with John Zaffis, who was your guest on Agent Paranormal this past Sunday. Talk a little bit about your background.
Well, I've always been interested in history. I've written a combined total of 10 books. For any aspiring authors out there, let me tell you, don't waste your time. There's no money in writing. So I didn't bring it, but one of the first books I did was part of the Arcadia America Images of America series. So I did one called Rome Revisited. And I did a very small chapter in there on military history, and they came back and they're like, can you do one on Griffiths? It's like, well, challenge accepted. So I did do a history book on Griffiths.
I love it.
And yes,
10
a few
books?
paranormal books.
You got 10 books under your sleeve right now.
So this is a professional book that you can buy worldwide, Barnes & Noble's, Amazon. I get 44 cents a copy. And because we live in Rome, New York, I barely made the 500 threshold.
It's almost like being a musician.
Yes. This one, however, is sold in the thousands. And if you think about it, in the history of Griffiths, maybe 50, 60,000 people were stationed there or worked there throughout its 50-year span. So that would make sense. And people just have an interest in military history, and it did play a very important role just in the real world. But then I also published something called The Logbook of UFO Activity.
Okay, that's the Logbook of UFO Activity. Now, when did you publish that one?
We first started in 2016.
2016.
And we always tell people, and the same with the paranormal, you need to keep a journal, because if you don't record things as soon as it happens, you're not going to remember all the minute details. So this was a very hard book to write, where it's just forms.
That's a lot of forms.
But there is some handy information. We put a glossary in there. And most of that is based off the military forms that they use for people to report UFOs or weird happenings. So
The super unknown.
Yes. So I guess before we really get into it, I should point out, because we always say this in the world of the paranormal too, paranormal is not synonymous with ghosts and spirits.
Right.
Paranormal means anything out of the normal. UFOs are not synonymous with alien life form. So UFO does not equal alien. UFO means it's an unidentified flying object. You don't know what it is at the time you're seeing it. It could be explainable. Maybe it's not.
Maybe aliens piloting it. Maybe it's not.
That could be, but... And they can also come underwater. There's other types of UFOs. It's just a word. So that would be the tech stuff, I guess.
Gotcha.
So do you want me to give you like the 3-minute history of Griffiths itself?
Yeah, actually.
Just so people know why the base is actually here.
And what sparked your interest with it? Just because you're from Rome and you just wanted to dive into the history of the Air Force Base?
Well, I guess I would have to credit and thank my existence for Griffiths. So my dad joined the Air Force in 1958.
Were you conceived there?
And, I'm sure I was thought about. So he was his first assignment out of training. He was stationed up here as a military policeman. And it was the same year, 1959, that they brought the B-52 bombers in. So he did his 3-year service basically up here. Fortunate or unfortunate for him, his last day was the day we actually declared war on Vietnam. So he never got to serve in Vietnam, but he was kept in the reserves for an up to 8-year period. I forgot what the exact qualifications. And in that time, of course, he met my mom and got married. And then in 1975, this big bundle of joy graced the city of Rome.
I'm a 75 or 2, brother.
A bicentennial baby.
That's it.
We're the good
that's
ones.
76. But.
Well, yeah, same thing. Well, all the coins back then said 75, 76. So okay. So basically, the history of the base goes back to 1940. Up until that point, around the 1936, I think it was, General Billy Mitchell said that the future was going to be air wars. He set up an experiment using a plane, and he dropped a bomb near a naval ship, and that bomb didn't hit the ship, but it sunk the ship, and that sent horrific feelings through the military high command. They're like, oh my God, this guy's probably has some merit. So the military does what the military does, and they court-martialed him because you can't tell the truth. So then in 1940, they started looking for more locations to put an air base. Rome is centrally located in New York. We had the Barge Canal, the Erie Canal, the Black River Canal. We had well-established railroads, the watersheds, and pretty much a very low population and a good visibility. We were close enough to the city. We were close enough to Philadelphia. We were close enough to big major hubs. So they did some preliminary testing. They chose Rome. They began construction in 1941. So after Pearl Harbor, they sped up the construction. February 1942, the first planes began to land here. So interesting to note, Rome Army Airfield at that time was actually staffed by women and African Americans. So the Women's Air Corps and the 100th Aviation Squadron. The mission of the base was to repair aircraft, storage, and that type of mundane. So if something was wounded in battle, they would bring the planes back from Europe. They would fix them up, get them flyable, send them back. The war ends. The Air Force becomes its own branch of service. It continues on with the maintenance and storage. They eventually bring fighters up here to defend the eastern seaboard. And then it becomes part of the Research and Air Development Command. So you may have heard of Rome Lab at some point. So there were many variations before that. If you have any of your older listeners out there, there was also something called ROAMA, the Rome Army Air Material Area. Again, that was another fancy term for storage. And then there was another one called GEA, the Ground Engineering Electronics Installation Agency. So those were the ones that were at the forefront of all the computer technology. And, yeah. So we did have two almost firsts at Griffiss.
Okay. Can you see?
So in 1954, they were looking for a place to put the Air Force Academy. Rome was actually in one of the finalist states of that because they thought, hey, West Point down in the city, the Air Force Academy up north. So I guess you know how that ended. Colorado lucked out. 1958, they were looking for a location to drop NASA. So there were some very high-profile people that were up here looking at Griffiss. And I believe one of the local radio stations a few months ago were running stories about a man named Werner von Braun, who was a German scientist, rocketeer. He was all over the base, but nobody claimed to have seen him, but he was here. And that was during the period they were looking for NASA. Again, we know how that ended. We didn't get NASA.
Right. That's where it went to, like, Cape Canaveral?
Yes.
Okay.
The split between that, Texas,
Houston,
and all
yeah,
the...
okay.
Yep. We did, however, get the B-52s up here in 59.
Imagine NASA in upstate New York. Like, what a difference this place would be right now if it was here. Oh, my God.
Or even the Academy.
Right, or the Academy, too.
Or both. Or And then it just pretty much supported Vietnam missions, Desert Storm. 1982, Griffiss received the first air-launched cruise missiles, which brought a lot of protesters up here. And then in 1995, they closed the military portion of the base, the flying missions, and decommissioned the base. So all that was left is the Air Force Research Laboratory. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay.
Oh, how could I have left out the entire...
You left out something?
the most important part?
What's that?
So the base was actually originally supposed to be called Carswell Air Force Base.
Carswell?
Yes, named after a Medal of Honor winner from Fort Worth, Texas. Fort Worth, Texas actually had the Griffiss Army Airfield. However, there was a little mix-up with the signage, and the people who created the signs created Griffiss Air Force Base, Rome, New York, and sent everything up to Rome, and created Carswell Air Force Base and sent it to Fort Worth, Texas. So just a little switch on paper ended up giving us the name Griffiss.
There's a little mix-up, huh? Huh.
I guess it works out because Griffiths was a Buffalo native and he was the first airman to die in World War II. So a New Yorker and a Texan, I guess that pretty much worked out.
It works out.
Is a side note, and I am absolutely not going to talk about this one on the air. If you ever want to get into Googling, make sure you use incognito or something for this one. I don't know if you follow any of the September 11th conspiracy theories. I hate to, but, being in the business, I read.
Yeah.
You'll see that Griffiths is actually all over that, too.
Really?
And it's kind of disturbing, and it's something I hope is not true, but essentially the planes disappear. One of the planes disappear around Amsterdam, New York. The theory is it was landed here at Griffiths, and it was replaced with a military plane, an EC-3A. And if you watch any of the conspiracy videos or anything like that, they tell you it wasn't a passenger plane that was hitting the World Trade Center. It was a military aircraft. That's where that story originates from. And I'll just leave that at that. I mean, it was a tragic day, and I don't mean to...
Yeah, that's a giant rabbit hole we can go down right now. But
if you're ever looking for an interesting bathroom reading, there's... So we're all over everything. I mean, every Spectrum and Spear. And
yeah.
That's my first thought. Well, what did they do with the passengers?
Right. I don't know if I can believe that one.
Makes good television and magazine articles.
It makes for, fake content, if you will. No. You don't know.
Yes.
You don't really know. These conspiracy theorists, there's so many outlandish theories out there. Some could be true and some can't be. It depends on where you fall in. But will we ever get to the truth? Probably not on most of these subjects.
So I guess from here we'll call this entertainment.
Okay.
And science fiction.
All right.
And fantasy.
I gotcha.
I have a reasoning behind that. We actually do a very good presentation on UFOs in the local history.
Okay.
We have to say it's science fiction because in the real world, no UFO aircraft or any type of thing has descended where alien life forms have gotten out and presented themselves to the public and said, I'm Remulard 5, please take me to your Big Mac. I mean, that's never happened that we know of.
Right.
So everything beyond that is all conjecture, stories, conspiracy. Or did we have first contact?
I like to think that we did. For sure. I mean, just with you in here. Peter, I think you're an alien.
I'm definitely paranormal. So here's another homework assignment for all of you.
Okay, I like it.
Your first one.
Okay.
Have you heard of a gentleman named Valiant Thor?
No.
He landed his spacecraft, Victor 1, a few miles away from the Pentagon. He and his crew of 3 got off and asked to see their leaders. He made it through all levels of security in the Pentagon. They brought him to the secret tunnel, brought him right up to see Dwight Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon, where he told them that he is a immortal created being from Venus. He's a member of the Council of 12, of which Jesus is also a member of, whom he frequently communicated with and worked with. And he remained in the Pentagon for 3 years. While he was there, we tortured him, beat him up, and we basically would not accept what he was trying to sell, which was basically global universal peace. One of the thoughts behind him is that he was basically telling them that the Bible and Jesus exist on every organic life form planet that's known. So that is actually a universe. That was his message. Even though you're on Earth, maybe on Venus it's this, it all goes back to the same message. After 3 years, basically, of our crap, he just disappeared right from the cell he was being held in, and he interdimensionally traveled out. That was the rationale they gave him. I haven't seen it, but there's apparently a new movie that just came out called The Stranger at the Pentagon, which is the story of Valiant Thor. Again, was that true? Is it not true?
Now, where is this story coming from?
There's actually 2 distinct ones out there now. There's one scientist claims to have worked and talked with him, and another one, this particular picture here, is a close-up of a picture that was taken on the USS Eldridge with a lot of science officers. The USS Eldridge was the ship that was used in the Philadelphia experiment, which is the time travel thing that went horribly wrong in 1944. And this picture comes directly from one of the scientists' sons. The other picture is a different picture of Thor, which looks like a younger Jimmy Stewart, and it has a more storied, shady background. So it doesn't do the story justice, so I guess that's why I say it's a homework assignment. If you want to read on it, you can read both of their perspectives. I tend to believe this would be, if this were ever real, this would be the story that makes more sense.
And then he just vanished.
It just vanished.
That's it. Never to be heard from again.
Unless you believe the other gentleman's story.
No,
but yes.
What's the other gentleman's story?
That he communicated with him right up to about 2006, where he would interdimensionally travel to him and talk to him. But as far as helping Earth, he's done with Earth.
He's done with Earth because we tortured him.
Pretty much. That's what we do.
Yeah, right.
But you don't want to talk about Thor. We want to talk about Griffiths, right?
Yeah, but that was an interesting story for sure.
So that's where it all starts. So you say, why was there such a boom of UFO activity in the 40s? Can you guess?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So in July of 1945, we detonated a nuclear bomb.
Oh, right.
In the desert. That blast sent a beacon into the universe saying, we're open for business. And then 2 days or 2 weeks later, whatever it was, we detonated 2 more bombs. So now it wasn't just a random light hitting space. We put the welcome mat out. That started to draw in all of the other life forms out there. Say, this isn't a planet of plants anymore. They've harnessed the power of nuclear energy. What's going on? And that started the craze of the 40s, 50s, 60s. If you think of how many nuclear bombs and tests that went on in that time period, the hundreds of them, they all correlate with the increase in UFO activity.
Do you think like the UFO activity were coming down maybe to police it or see what was going on? Or
at first, I believe it was curiosity, like what's going on here, like. Or who are these people? Like, we didn't know about this planet, because I would think that an atomic blast, since light travels faster than everything, sends that message out there like, oh, there's one we didn't know about. Mm-hmm. Again, just a random theory, but in the ufology field, that's what they believe led to the increase in sightings. So now we're going to go back to 47.
Okay.
Little old Rome, New York. The Rome Army Airfield. A B-17 crashed at some point in the winter of 1947, right around Ringdale's Flowers, which would be today the area of Hummel's, the Burger King over there near the base.
Okay. Yep.
And the wreckage was recovered and so on and so forth. So we fast forward to end of June, July of 1947. That's when the Roswell crash happens. Okay, pretty straightforward. I mean, that's what started.
It's pretty famous.
Everything. That started.
That's the mecca of UFO activity and conspiracies and all that would be the Roswell crash.
Yep, and that's where they made the big mistake of saying to the media, a flying saucer crashed, and then had to immediately recant it because of the outcry that came from it. So everything was gathered up. Everything was spirited away. Now, this was told to me by a few researchers over the years. So you have Roswell Army Airfield, RAAF. You have the Rome Army Airfield, RAAF. They had said that they had sent the B-17 wreckage down to Roswell and swapped the alien stuff up to Rome. At that time, Rome was always subordinate to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Again, UFO people know Wright-Patterson is the...
Hangar 18, right?
Yes. Okay. So we've always, and even today, the lab still works under Wright-Patterson. Nobody really knows. That's sort of your Area 51 of the North. Okay. That's maybe Area 52, who knows. But so that wreckage was said to have been at the base. Things were done to it, but on paper, that's why a lot of civilian accounts are like, oh, no, it looked like airplane parts. So So we don't know what really happened with Roswell. So I'm sure your listeners out there are like, all right, that's a bunch of bull hockey. I mean, so just a random quick Google search. This is why I love this stuff, and it all gets interesting.
It's all out there.
The report of Air Force research regarding the Roswell incident in 1994, which was requested by a senator, where they requested all records related to the Roswell crash. It's amazing that one of the 7 locations they requested records from was
right here in Rome.
Griffiss Air Force Base.
Huh.
If we had nothing to do with it, why would a congressman be asking for the records? What's more, they're specifically asking Rome Laboratory for the records. Rome Lab wasn't founded until 1951. That was 4 years after the wreckage.
Yeah.
So what was going on from the beginning? That's the skeptic's question.
Definitely raises some concern.
So we may have an involvement in Roswell. I've had people tell me that there's a 14-story structure underneath the base. People have said that it's a joint alien CIA base, meaning there's aliens living under the base working with the U.S. government to develop technology.
Currently.
Back then and currently.
Okay.
So then if you start looking at the things that start coming out of Rome Laboratory, you have over the years, like the CD was invented there in the 70s, the compact disc, that totally came out of Rome Lab.
Did it really?
Yes.
Never knew that.
1960, the first satellite communication received from space through Echo 1 came through the Floyd Test Center through Rome Lab. They were also responsible for developing the modern, radar systems for fighter jets. It's called SAGE, Semi-Automated Ground Environment. The planes couldn't fly at night without that. So that came out of Rome Lab. And it's just a long series of inventions, microwave technology, the photon technology. If you remember growing up, we were always told, oh my God, when it's college time, go take photonics. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Take photonics. It's the thing of the future. And then it disappeared and became fiber optics. So that was all the ground basis for that. I'm not sure if Al Gore actually did invent the internet. There was a very primitive one created at the lab.
They just gave him the credit.
Pretty much. And there's just a whole slew of inventions. Every year, Rome Lab publishes a book of their accomplishments, and they're public documents, and you can look through these things, and the more and more stuff you look through, and you just sit there and thinking.
How come we don't hear of it, though? Like, the invention of the CD is kind of a big thing, especially back in the day. You know, it's kind of a big thing. How come we didn't know it was invented here in Rome?
Well, see, now another person who worked for a defense contractor told me, right now the technology is about 75 to 100 years ahead of what we're currently living in. They can't just put it all out at once.
Right.
But if you really think of, being in the music industry and all the entertainment, we literally went from cassette tapes to CDs to digital, like within a blink of an eye. Like, just as soon as I updated the CDs, they were no longer, it's like you could have saved me all that money.
Yeah.
And other technology, it's just, especially in our lifetimes, it's just one thing after another. Trying to think of some other profound stuff. If you actually get a tour of the lab, they have a lot of that stuff up on the walls there that they've.
So what you're telling me,
tens of thousands of patents on processes and equipment and
insane. So you're telling me they have technology out there right now that's so far ahead of us, but they can't release it just for the simple fact is we probably wouldn't be able to A, understand it, or B, accept it.
Allegedly, yes.
You know, because humans have a hard time accepting things. You know.
Yes.
You know, and adapting to technologies as well. So I imagine it's too far advanced for us for them to put it out there. But I can only imagine what's going on.
But somebody here who hates flying, if you have a flying saucer that's going to take me from Rome to Las Vegas in 3 minutes and just go, whoop,
I would love that.
Just
Please
put it out there.
Beam me up, Scotty.
You're not going to lose money on the technology. Just do it.
Right. Please.
Again, these are all stories. Like when I was writing this book, a few people had approached me and they're like, is there anything about UFOs in there? I'm like, well, no, it's a strict historical thing. I don't want to put anything
You don't
like
push
that.
any buttons.
I'm like, but being a paranormal investigator, And the stuff they would nonchalantly tell you. Like one of these, it was a senior master sergeant. He's like, oh, yeah, back in March of 1976, he's like, we scrambled the jets, we shot one down. He's like, a piece of it was on the colonel's desk for years. It just glowed green. It's like you had a piece of it on his desk. The fact that it glowed green should have been an indication you didn't want to be near that. But
no doubt.
Or they would talk about the strange beings and creatures that would walk around down near Penny Street, which would be the back part of the base. And it's like, and then there were certain parts of the base that they had to actually make off limits to the families. So what was actually happening
and this is in
out there?
This back in the 40s and 50s?
Now, this was right up to the 80s, 90s. Like, they didn't want people in certain areas. Mm-hmm. So there was a book that came out in the mid-2000s by this gentleman called The UFO, The Griffiths Connection. Fascinating read if you're into the UFOs. It's one of them. It's like I say, is this the real deal or is this?
It's kind of on the fence.
I can give merit to where he said he got the documents from. So let me give you the quick background on this.
Sure.
BRAC closed the base in 95. And I know this because I talked to one of the historians. Years later, they're like, oh, my God, I wish I knew you. You could have came in and taken anything you want. We were ordered to throw everything out. He's like, you could have taken photos, tens of thousands, numerous roll-off dumpsters. They just trashed of everything, the entire history. So this gentleman claims he was dumpster diving and found the files that belonged to the Men in Black. And that's what this book is based on. He transcribed all of them into...
Don't you find it hard to believe they would just throw all this stuff away?
That's the part that bothers me, but yet at the other hand, it's like so much stuff was being thrown out and liquidated. I mean, I could see where it's plausible, but at the same time, I don't see that stuff just being discarded.
Right.
So what are the Men in Black? Who knows? If I had to give you the background of that, there was a group at the base called the 1st Communications Maintenance Squadron. I'm going to show you a picture of their patch.
Let's see.
Well, that makes it kind of obvious, doesn't it? There's something not right about that.
Let me show this a little bit better to the crew out there. Hang on. That's right here.
So do you notice something in the design?
It looks like Woody Woodpecker.
It's some kind of gremlin, space alien type of
alien. He's got like a pack on his back, flying, and I don't know. That's strange. So, what year was this? The SOD?
That would have been the 50s.
This is the 50s.
Absolutely, the 50s. And they would have yielded to the more modern, what you would call the Office of Strategic Investigation. In Rome, it would have been the 22nd District, which came from, I believe they were headquartered out of West Point at that time. Mm-hmm. Some of those details, forgive me, I don't remember the exact date. And if you read in here, you'll see accounts where the 22nd OSI is mentioned as some of the inquisitors. Huh. Not to ruin the book for anybody entirely, but there's several mentions in there of something called Hatchet, which is a code word for Area 51. There are mentions for one of them was a lady airman hit an alien in Floyd and reported it. But they were able to make her...
What do you mean she hit her? Like with her
vehicle? Her car,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So they interviewed her, and then at the time she was interviewing, she's like, well, you know what? I was very tired. Maybe it was a deer. No, I'm pretty sure it was a deer. Thank you very much. And then the notes of the investigators said on there, we wish they were all that easy. So that tells you they must have been using some form of intimidation or tactics that, well, they would ruin your career, basically. If you came forward with that, they would ruin your career.
Some sort of brainwashing technique.
I don't know if they have the flashy pen, but I could use one of them. So if anyone has one for sale. And a lot of stories are like that. They'll all be like, well, I seen this. Are you sure you've seen that? No, I didn't see that. Mm-hmm. Nope.
So it's an intimidating factor.
Especially if you were an officer, especially if that was your career, you knew that was the end of your career. Mm-hmm. They talk in here about where they sent, there's like weird webby-like discharges they would find all over the ground. And they would send the stuff out for testing. They would send out saliva samples that were found on like the vegetation. And all of these samples would continuously come back non-terrestrial, meaning they're nothing known to our planet. Mm-hmm. Living in Rome, that's kind of scary. It's like we're living amongst who knows what. I mean, is it really true? What else do we want to talk about? Do you have any? I mean,
yeah,
feel free to.
I want to go back to people have reported that they would bump into creatures just walking on the street, like you said, Penny Street. That was like a frequent thing that happened back then.
According to his book, yes, there's several accounts in there of interactions.
Okay.
I joke around with people. I'm like, you want to see weird stuff? Go to Walmart in Rome at like 11:30 at night. and I'm not saying it to like make fun of people who may have a handicap or any. Right. There's some very oddly proportioned people with strange gaits. Like they're walking and weird. If I were to say it was true, I would say that would be the night they all go out and go shopping and then go back to the 14-story complex underground.
Gotcha. You think there's some hybrids going on?
I don't know.
Yeah, half alien, half human.
But see, I always joke. I got to play the other card. I'm like, Rome, New York is mostly Italian American. I'm like, how the hell do you dig a hole that big in Rome, New York, and not one Italian knows about telegraph, telephone, telling Italian? I'm sorry. And somebody's like, well, there's an answer for that. They brought people in from California, and then when they dug the hole, they brought them back home.
Interesting.
Like, well,
interesting.
I guess that makes sense, but
doing all this investigating that you do, have you ever tried to get inside Griffiss and do some searching or any of that? No. Just
it is still very much a real base. There are areas there that are heavily armed,
and you'll get shot.
And yes, and I don't know if you ever tried getting on it when it was actually an air base. I mean, my mom had worked there as a secretary, and from time to time we would go pick her up. And I mean, even as a kid, that was just intimidating. You have two guys with M16 sidearms. I mean, yeah, that wasn't a cut through like we all use today to go to Utica. I mean, you were forbidden from going on that base if you didn't have a purpose. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of the Montauk chair?
The Montauk chair?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
Have you heard of Montauk, Long Island?
Yes.
So they were doing all kinds of weird experiments there, things like the Stargate, all that type of technology, and then all of the engineers and scientists mysteriously died. Well, there's something called the Montauk chair. So there's a chair somewhere apparently in Rome Lab that can move itself to Montauk through time and space.
It's like it's a portal or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've heard different stories about that from researchers. I mean, not sure I would want to take that ride, but.
Right. A friend of mine recently told me a story that when he was a kid, he grew up in Rome, and he was running through kind of over by the base in the woods, and all of a sudden some landowner set these Rottweilers free on them, and they started chasing after my friends, and he's running. He came out of the woods, and then all of a sudden the Rottweilers were gone, and it felt like time just stood still, and he was like really freaked out about it. And then when he goes to ask his friends totally forgot about it. Like his friends don't remember that incident whatsoever, but he does. And he thinks some kind of weird, time contingency thing happened with him.
So let me put this out there for your listeners. Actually, it's not really Griffiss related, but we've been getting calls and people have been talking about Clayville, New York right now. There's some very weird things going on. People are missing a lot of time, and they're starting to see very strange things going on in the skies. So if anybody out there has I
have a lot of friends.
Any things with Clayville or something, or if you think you've lost time, please let me know. We'd love to talk to you on that.
Clayville, huh?
And I don't mean this as a derogatory, but you're old enough. Do you remember the cattle mutilations around here in the 80s?
I don't.
Okay, so in Marcy, New York, there was a lot of cattle mutilations. They wrote it off to satanic groups and stuff.
Yep, I do remember.
Was that satanic, or did that have to do with something else going on? I mean, that's
interesting.
Yes. And so we haven't really talked about UFOs. I probably bored the hell out of everybody with all this other weird. So you want to get into the actual spaceship, flying ships?
Well, there's so many incidences that happen, locally in the 70s. And where's that? I just dug up a thing here. Now, there was a thing happened in 1954 where there's an abandoned. Is that the Wamsville thing?
That's Walesville. There was Mattydale. There was a major incident in recovery, and then allegedly.
And then there was the airplane. Major Donald Kehoe was the other guy. He was flying, and I think he was flying next to a UFO is what happened, and somehow the UFO ended up crashing. I don't have the whole story about it, and the UFO ended up crashing, but there was nothing in the UFO whatsoever. Do you know anything about that one? Is that out
of Syracuse, or was that?
That was close by. Syracuse. Yep.
I'm not totally onto that one. I know of that one. There's also the Happy Valley incident outside of Oneida Lake. There's actually a few documentaries out there about that.
Really?
The large amount of USOs or UWOs, the underwater flying objects that come out of Oneida Lake. So there's some very interesting stuff there. So to get into the actual flying part now, so you have all these reports.
Okay.
So the government opens up something called Project Sign, which turned into Project Grudge and now Project Blue Book. And I guess there's something on the History Channel now called Project Blue Book. It's a TV series based on that. So they had two scientists heading that up, Dr. J. Allen Hynek and Dr. Jack Vallée. So these were the guys that sifted through tens of thousands of UFO reportings. Now, these guys were also seen off and on at Griffiss Air Force Base. In 1960, a gentleman named Hector Quintanilla, who was a major, was assigned to Griffiss Air Force Base as unassigned, meaning he wasn't there as part of a unit, but he was actually in charge of Project Blue Book. A few years back, when they released all the files for Project Blue Book, online, you could go look everything up. So as soon as it went active, we went out there and we downloaded everything we could get. Guess what? The stuff's not out there anymore.
Really?
The photos, the file, everything from the Griffiss stuff, you can't. There's fragments out there because it was online, but you can't find a lot of the files. And when you start looking at a lot of the sighting reports that were filled out by the OSI, you start seeing these forms were signed off by Dr. Hynek, Dr. Vallée. So that's showing you the level of how high these reports were going up to. One of the prominent ones you can still find is the Walesville incident. So that's a small little hamlet outside of Westmoreland. That's the four-way stop there on Westmoreland Road. I believe there's a stone with a flag. The river's there. I can't even think of the other road that goes
Stop 7? Is that Stop 7 Road?
A little further up, but the intersection before.
I got you.
So a Mohawk Airlines pilot radios in that they're seeing something very strange in the sky. They radio over to Griffiss. There were 2 fighter planes that were out training near Niagara Falls, and they told them intercept whatever this thing is. Now, when a pilot's reporting a UFO versus you or me, there's something called the source reliability code. And what that means is the more credible the original inquiry, the quicker and more precise they handle it. So they immediately scrambled. As soon as the fighter planes got in view of whatever it was that was in the sky, the pilot claims that the cockpit burst into flames. He ejected out. One of the airplanes flew into a house. I believe it killed 1 or 2 people. The other airplane went and took out a station wagon and killed a family of 4. That forever became known as the Walesville incident. That was heavily investigated by Project Blue Book. And it's one of those things, again, you go to any UFO convention, all you have to do is say, oh, I'm near where the Walesville incident. They know exactly who you are and what. Me personally, I don't think that had anything to do with alien life forms. But they later claimed it was a nuclear balloon that they were doing research on at the lab. And there was another aircraft in the sky at the time, some cargo plane. Again, that could all be Bullshtagen. I mean, who knows? Uh-huh. And I did bring you in the newspaper headlines. That was a very big deal at the time. The only caveat I say to that and why I hold my own opinion, the 2 aircraft that crashed were F-94C fighter jets. That was the absolute worst model airplane the Air Force ever had created. I believe every one of them crashed, and many of them were from cockpit failure like that. There's the stories out there that this big beam of light came and lit up the cockpit, and again, where's the story versus reality? I mean, given the unreliability of that aircraft, it's sad people died. I don't know how to write that one off, but I'm thinking that one's more realistic. However, once you get into the Blue Book files, you'll start seeing that there were actually hundreds of calls to the Sheriff's Department before and after that. People were seeing silver-type objects flying all over Utica and all over the outlining area. So could that be coincidence? I mean, was that the bigger event, which actually took place later in the day? There's the Mattydale one, which you sort of mentioned. There was a different one. That's where they actually recovered some of the aircraft, which was brought to Griffiths. Whatever they shot down or fell down or whatever. Again, everything was under such a shroud of secrecy, we'll never know. Another one people have told me over years, the Great Blackout in the 60s, where the whole eastern seaboard went out. People claim that along Marcy and all the way up 49, you could actually see UFOs with extensions clamped right to the high-tension power wires. That's what they believe created the blackout. They were all trying to energize their ships or charge up, and they just shorted out the entire... Oh, you want good stories? Go to a UFO convention. I mean...
That's a great one.
Again, most of this is all secondhand to me. I can't. Right. I'm just passing it along for entertainment.
Right. All of this, it's not proven, but these are great stories.
And that's
why people write books about them.
Most recently, well, we also did have the spy aircraft up here, too. We had the SR-71 Blackbird was stationed here for a little bit. Okay. I actually almost got myself into trouble because I put a picture of it in here in one of the hangars at Griffiths, and I was contacted, and they said, "Where did you get the picture from?"
Did you take it?
No, fortunately, it was stamped on the back, though, that it was from the U.S. Air Force Photo Lab, but because they were never here.
Gotcha.
But they were being used during the Israeli war in 1971. They were refueling here, taking off in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. Back to NASA, I mean, we have one of the longer runways that were put in when it was put in, so the space shuttle at that time could actually have been landed here. That was one of the purposes. I actually did see it, I think, once or twice. They had practiced landing that. Air Force One. Just trying to remember. There's so much.
What about recent incidences? There has been a couple. I know back in 2017, I think there was some reports of unidentified flying objects going around in the area.
That was me. I'm sorry.
That was you. I knew it. They were dropping you off, huh?
I have a bag packed. Come on.
Hit that portal.
It's always like, we're creating Space Force. I'm like, yes. Yes. I want to work for you.
Sign me up.
Attention. No.
Let me ask you, would you fly? Would you go in the space if you had the opportunity? You know how they're trying to do those flights or whatever?
That was a goal when I was younger, but having been on airlines, I probably wouldn't know.
Want to stay grounded, right?
Yeah.
I'm with you.
But yeah, I do remember the Challenger incident. I was always into model rocketry. I mean, astronomy. And then I went to school and had crappy math teachers, and here I am. Now I'm a janitor for the U.S. government.
Well, let's talk about recent incidences that have been reported. Like I said, 2017. I feel like there was a bunch going on in 2017.
Did I send you the picture I captured of one?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'll send you after the...
Okay.
So we used to do a radio show on a different network every Tuesday night, and I was bringing one of the gentlemen home from the show back to Rome, and as soon as we hit the upper arterial in Rome, there was an incredibly large, triangular-shaped object in the sky, and it wasn't moving. People were like, "Oh no, well, it's coming at you." It appears that it wasn't moving. Of course, we don't have any equipment with us, so all I could take a picture was with the crappy iPhone 4, which doesn't really do any justice. But it had 3 very distinct green lights, and in the center there was a larger red light. And what we would do is you would see all of a sudden the light array would do some weird thing, and it was just gone. There was no. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna drop Steve off and get the hell back. I'm gonna go see if I get some equipment. I'm coming right back. I'm gonna try. And sure enough, as I was driving home on Route 49, this thing was hovering right over 49. The closer I'm getting to Whitesboro, the bigger and bigger it's getting. If I had to guess, it was about 100 feet on each side. And at one point, I pulled off into on Main Street there. It's the repair section there. I don't know if it's for the DPW or whatever. I got out, and it was right there hovering. I don't know how far up it was, maybe 500 feet.
Wow, that close.
It had no sound to it. And you could clearly see the distinct outline, the light pattern. And then again, the lights did what it did, and it's just gone. Huh. I'm like, now I really have to go get some equipment. Got equipment, went back out, couldn't really find anything. So the only thing I got of that one was the picture, and I'll share that with you afterwards. We used to see it almost every show Tuesday night between 9 and 11. We'd be driving, and you could see this weird triangle aircraft. At this point, I'm going to say it's ours. I'm not assuming there's anything intergalactic about that. I'm pretty sure that's ours. And I always joked with Rich and all the other guys on the group. I'm like, could you imagine if I had the night vision goggles with me that night and I locked on? I'm like, they probably would have taken me out with a missile or something.
No.
Ground control, we just got locked on with infrared. Take it out.
Now,
but that was, like I said, almost every Tuesday night,
when other people
Thursday.
see it too, was reports going on about that?
And then we were getting a lot of calls from Floyd, which seemed to be in the path. They're like, this weird green light just comes and it goes. And again, they could be practicing with drones up there, which have a similar light structure. But like I said, at that one point, we were so close we could actually see the outline of a triangle. Mm-hmm. NASA for years has been working on something called the TR-3B, which is an anti-gravity reconnaissance airship, if you will. So that may have actually been built. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And again, the population is low enough here, and once Wheel of Fortune comes on, that's usually 90% of our communities at home watching TV. They're not doing anything
that murder show
outside, so that's
right.
But a lot of people have seen that, and my friend, she was coming out of what was the steak restaurant there? Outback Steakhouse, and she's like, oh my God, I saw a triangle thing just zoom through the sky. I'm like, huh. So I mean, people were calling us and telling us, like I said, a lot of people in the Stittville, Floyd area, which would be in your flight path of the lab. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I know the radio stations. I'm trying to think of there were a couple others that people were sending pictures in from like downtown Rome and
I want to say like IBX picked up on it, and so did Big Frog. Like the whole town square people, they all picked up on it.
And it was like the weird glowing group of lights or something. I'm trying to mentally think of the picture. There was
and this was about 4 years ago, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I remember this.
I don't know of anything recently other than, like I said, the people are calling in now in the Clayville area where they're missing.
So what's happening in Clayville right now?
I don't know.
If
you have friends out there, I would ask.
I'm going to ask them. In fact, if there's anybody from Clayville watching right now, please chime in on this. I'd like to know more about this.
I mean, this is what I always find fascinating. This is the fun part, the research part. Not when the guys with the suitcases show up and ask you where you found the stuff.
Now, have guys with suitcases showed up?
Not for me.
Not for you yet? No.
They have. If you want another research project, ladies and gentlemen. So I mentioned Griffiths being a joint CIA UFO base or alien base. So one of the most famous is the Dulce Air Force Base, DOLCHE, the battle at Dulce Air Force Base. So allegedly the aliens went a little nutty one night and had a battle with the CIA, and there was only one human survivor out of it. And he came out to tell the story of what actually happened during the battle where they were fighting aliens underground. And he made the absolute claim. He said, I'm going to tell you what happened. He said, if something happens to me, understand the government doesn't want you to know it. And mysteriously enough, he died. So,
Where's Dulce, and when did that take place?
I want to say New Mexico, and that was in the 70s.
Okay. Huh. And this is all you can research.
I mean,
this,
yes,
right?
that's
it's out there in the internet.
That's one of the big ones out there. Mm-hmm. There's Area 51, and that's a major topic. People always thought, like they wanted to storm Area 51. I love that movement. I was waiting for oh my God. You can't stop us all. You think so? You do understand the military has a weapon called the Iron Storm, right? That can fire 1 million projectiles in a minute. Do you think you're going to be able to breach that? Good luck.
Good luck. Imagine that. That didn't really pan out to anything anyways. The people were camping out, but I think they just were told to leave, and everybody, okay, bye, we're out.
I think the big incident was the one guy who peed on the fence. That was it. It's like, I'm going to pee on you. But if anybody in the hobby, anybody who knows that Bill Clinton actually declassified Area 51, and all the documents are actually out on the internet. However, it's Area 54 now is the one you need to.
Now, what's Area 54?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So would they just...
It's rumored it's in the mountains of Utah, but that's where all the whatever you want to call it, the black projects went, the black book. At one point I got to meet through Rich, because he's the big celebrity agent. He had Stanton Frieden up at MVCC, who was a well-renowned ufologist who just passed away. And he worked on those black projects, like reverse engineering of propulsion systems. And he's like, we would get them to just the point where they worked. He's like, and then you would come into the laboratory the next day and everything was gone. Like everything was gone. He's like, that's where we assume the second group stepped in and actually made that stuff real.
Creepy.
So, I mean, there's so much out there that's...
What about the Denver airport? A lot of stuff going on around the Denver airport, and there's like artwork going on there, and people are always freaked out. And they also say, conspiracy theories say that there's alien life form going on at the Denver airport as well. Do you have any knowledge on that?
Not offhand, but since they legalized weed, I'm sure that probably has something to do with the sightings or the aliens stopping there to party.
It's happened way before the weed, though.
But again, Colorado, you have the Air Force Academy. I mean, who knows what's going on out there? Mm-hmm. It seems to be the weirdest places you would never consider. The most obscure locations have like the weirdest things people live with.
Mm-hmm. Right underneath your nose.
And sadly, with the high incidence of cancer in this area, you have to ask questions like something is being done that's well out of the ordinary. Mm-hmm. My mom worked at the lab. She died of cancer. My uncle worked at the lab. He died of cancer. All their friends died of cancer. It's like something was going on there between that period of the 50s and 90s that, you know, was it all the microwave technology they were working on? Was it nuclear stuff? I mean, again, if you don't like them, but they're the one person you have to thank if you're a government employee is Bill Clinton, because he signed a bill in 1995 that made it illegal to test on government employees without their knowledge. Huh. So when you signed up to work for the government, anything went.
They were testing on you. Really?
And I think that's why a lot of people, the older crowd, developed a lot of weird illnesses and cancers from that. Having worked on the base, there are days where you're just working there and it's like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. Like things just start hitting. Like, and then you're fine. It's like, what the hell was that? Huh. You know, you're perfectly fine and healthy, or you just sit there and you can't think anymore. And it's like,
did your mom and dad ever tell you stories about time standing still or any kind of weird incidences happening at the base? Or were they like sworn to secrecy or no?
All I can say was Dad was a city fireman afterwards, a Rome fireman. And one of the other rumored things is that there's a battery of nuclear missiles somewhere on the base.
Really?
One of the last things he had said is like, they never notified anybody that the missiles were gone. Again, another conspiracy theory. Back in the day, if you can pull up the older Google Earth photos back near Penny Street, you'll see 6 circular indentations and then another 6, so 12 total. However, when you Google that area now, it's completely flat. So was that where they actually kept a surprise?
Interesting.
And also during Woodstock, that was an area you couldn't go into. You couldn't go anywhere near that weapons storage area. Well, Woodstock 99. How the hell do we forget that in the history of Griffiths?
They'll never do another show at Griffiths ever again. I'm surprised they let that happen, especially with you telling me all this stuff was going on. Now, granted, the base was closed for about a good 4 or 5 years, right, before Woodstock came about?
Well, the lab has never shut, but during Woodstock, they actually did send everybody home.
Did they?
However, Mom did say that they did have machine guns set up on the buildings and measures in place if people got a little rowdy.
And they did get a little rowdy. They brought it to that level for sure.
Oh, I was there.
I missed that.
I was there.
I was traveling. I missed Woodstock 99.
I worked in one of the beer gardens. Mm-hmm. That's where it all started. Beer Garden C, Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. Let's hand candles out to people who are angry. It's going to end really well.
Great idea. Oh my God, great idea. Well, don't you think maybe the energy of the base brought people to that level, right? With all the weird kooky shit going on prior to all this?
I mean, if I couldn't use a toilet for 4 days, I would have been a little nutty too. But look, we're having a mud fight. It's not mud. It's not mud. Look at where the water's coming from. And it's funny, I have the book that the fire department prepared. My dad had it. They're ready for a terrorist attack, biological attack, nuclear attack. My dad's like, what do we do if there's a fire there? They're like, it's on a runway. What the hell is going to burn? Well, I guess they showed you.
Yeah. Well, that's what you get for passing out thousands and thousands of candles to piss off people who haven't taken a shit in 4 days.
First, they started burning the garbage cans. Then it's like, ooh, the wall's made of plywood.
You think
it's not going to end good, is it?
I want to know what was going on 14 stories underneath Griffiths when Woodstock 99 was going on. What was happening over there? Were they rocking out to Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit? Or
I don't know. Limp Bizkit was the first concert I was ever at where I got hit in the head with a full can of beer. Ouch!
Oh, that's right. There's a couple.
I know that's not Alien, but there were some strange people there.
I have a couple people checking in right now. Jamie, some declassifications of documents like Adam and Eve story by Chant Thomas, a historic history of catalysms. Do you know anything about that?
Not familiar with that.
No? Okay. The Denver airport he's talking about too, all kinds of fucked up Freemason satanic imagery shit at the Denver airport. Good call. Are you have any knowledge on the Denver airport at all?
No, but I can give you the scoop on Freemasonry if you want.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a member.
Okay.
3rd degree Master Mason. I'm going to tell you 100%, they are not running the world. If you've been to any of the local lodges, I can tell you for 100%, they are not running the world.
There you go.
The Illuminati might be. I don't know anything about the Illuminati, but for the Masons, I can tell you it's just an organization of men that have a secret, which actually isn't secret. Go online, search any of the rituals. Everything is out there is 100%. I mean, that's...
He's also saying MK Ultra, testing LSD and psychic phenomenons, etc. That's Denver Airport, I'm thinking.
No, that MK Ultra actually may still be in play with the CIA. There was a few movies recently about that, too. That's where they would basically activate people. Again, when you're in UFOs, you got to delve into the world of conspiracy theory too. Mm-hmm. Like I believe the school shooting in Connecticut, was it? They claim the guy was activated.
Oh, okay.
They claim that they can activate people to do these horrific acts of stupidity. Again, I don't like talking about the stuff because it diminishes the memory of the victims and stuff. But that's their claim, is that they have a way of making you do what they want.
Interesting.
We actually in the paranormal do a little bit of that. It's called the Gansfeld experiment. So if we ever drag you into like a very haunted place, we can put a mask over your eyes, just listen to white noise, and we just leave you there. And basically you go into a state of euphoria because everything's just attacking all of your senses. You can't see, you can't hear. It's at that point something may talk to you or communicate with you. So this goes in with the psychedelics they're talking about. Right now, the big drug is DMT.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce the other one. Ayahuasca,
and there's Ibogaine. There's a bunch.
And all of those are meant to trigger the same thing, bring you into a state where you're supposedly more receptive to.
It's supposed to open up your third eye.
Yes.
For lack of a better term.
I mean, I've experimented with like binaural music and some of the other stuff out there, like the theta wave music. I mean, it produces some very strange dreams.
And feelings.
Yes. But since I work for the government, I can't do drugs. So, I mean, I have to just experiment with the fun stuff.
There you go. I know you got to get out of here soon, too, don't you?
A few minutes.
You got a few minutes? All right, good. I think we could talk for like 10 hours if we had the opportunity to do so. You did mention that little events of putting you white noise and stuff. There's an event coming up on April 18th that you guys are doing, a ghost hunt at Rucker Mansion. We should promote that a little bit.
Yes.
That's going on April 18th. Agent Paranormal coming together. You've been through Rucker Mansion a few times. What are some of the stuff that you've gotten out of that? Lots of.
We can turn your crap green with the stuff we've encountered in the Rutger Mansions. It's a very, how do I want to put it? It's an unassuming location. It's one of those locations. There's two mansions, Mansion 1 and Mansion 3. Mm-hmm. Mansion 3 is the one they're fully restoring at this time. It has connections with Ulysses S. Grant.
Right.
Roscoe Conkling, who was a local senator and presidential candidate. A lot of very important people went in and out of that house. It has something to it. There's just a feeling to it. There's a lot of weirdness, especially on the second floor. We haven't really ever pinned anything down there, but it's there. So you go to Mansion number 1, which was a Southern plantation style building. And in its last incarnation was a nursing home. We were told it was a nursing home until the state shut it down. When you're in there, you could understand why that may have been. So like your average bedroom in a house is maybe 10 by 14 feet. Those same rooms would have had 6 people in it. So there's 6 sick people in beds piled literally on top of each other. The hallways are barely bigger than me. So you have to beg the question, how are you getting wheelchairs down there? How are you getting any kind of medical equipment down there? Mm-hmm. And as Rich likes to describe it, everything's painted in institutional green. The paint's flaking, falling off the walls, and it looks like, oh my God, I forgot what that video game is. Silent Hill. That's what he always calls it. He's like, it looks like Silent Hill. You walk in there's the big Gone with the Wind staircase, and then as soon as you get upstairs, that's it. It looks like the pit of hell. We've made communication with a few of the residences. We've gotten a gentleman named Milton, who's identified himself that was his room. But also when he said that was his room, we could hear 2 or 3 other people saying, who's in here? And a person saying, me. Well, of course, that's the answer. I mean, it'd be nice if you told us your name. In the upper part, we got a gentleman named Johnny. And we pick up almost every time now a young child spirit who identifies himself as Klaus.
Right, you've told me.
And if you've heard of Klaus will tug on your pants. Klaus will come in the room. We're not really sure what Klaus is. Because we've been in other investigations out of the state, and Klaus has come through our equipment, and that's not something that should be happening.
Well, Klaus is attached to you.
Oh, I hope not.
Or maybe Rich, or one of you guys.
Believe it or not, we did a birthday party there.
Did you? For a Klaus? No.
They're like, my kid wants to do a ghost hunting party.
Really?
They're like, we'll make a donation to the Ruckers. So they came to us. They're like, could you come in for like a couple hours? And, oh, yeah. I'm like, what the hell? So apparently we do birthday parties, weddings, and bar mitzvahs now. So if you want that entertainment, just let us know. So it was maybe like 20 kids they brought in on a bus. It was almost the equal number of boys and girls. So we'd split them up. So the ladies out there, they're the bravest souls known to me. I mean, nothing scares ladies. The men, it was like watching like Scooby-Doo. I mean, they're all like holding each other, and you can hear these kids, I'm going to crap my pants if I see something. I'm going to crap. And it was more fun just watching them fall apart than... Yeah. And like I said, nothing fazed the girls. They're like, oh, it's the pit of hell in there. They would just all link arms and just go in one large bunch of...
Like they're in a haunted house. Yeah, hilarious.
So I had them in the one room and the birthday girl, and I'm like, Klaus, it's her birthday. Can you come up and say something? And the spirit box that we run, if you've been watching the paranormal show that we're doing here, the AM/FM radio that scans multiple frequencies, there was his voice, like, happy birthday. And the girl, like, jumped back, and she said, you made it do that. I didn't make it do that. So then the girls are all excited. They run downstairs. They tell the guys, like, 2 guys ran out there, like, that's it. I'm going home. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I'm losing it. And gone. That was it. But yes, if you need a wedding, bar mitzvah, or a birthday party, the route.
Ghost hunting birthday parties. That's the way to go.
You can get married in number 3, which is very beautiful and nice, and then we'll take you next door and scare the crap right out of you.
All in one day. Pat wants to know, what's the scariest thing you've ever encountered?
An angry wife? I don't. Scariest thing. I grew up in a haunted house.
Did you?
So a lot of that desensitizes you the older you get. So I guess that would be the scariest thing. When I was 7 years old, a Revolutionary War soldier walked right through my bedroom. I can close my eyes. I can still see that face. It is the sternest, meanest face I've ever seen. It, like I said, to this day, that still set the foundation. I would, for hours in the house, watch shadow figures move up and down the hallways, like little, medium, tall ones, and they just walked about like they had purpose. Something was always behind you. You never could go in the basement of the house. Like, it'd be the middle of August, you go in the basement, you could see your breath, it was that cold down there. And then you would get a feeling that would come over your entire body that said, get the hell out of here right now, and you ran. There was, it's like, get out of here. So I guess that house in totality is probably the scariest.
I think that was your inspiration of getting behind all this paranormal stuff that you're into?
Yes, because good parents always tell you, don't talk about that stuff. You're going to end up in Marcy. People are going to think you're nuts. Don't talk about that. So you see what ends up happening to you. You talk about it and become a paranormal investigator. But that was their way of protecting us, because one year, all of a sudden, we were having Christmas dinner. Everybody in the house opened up and started like, all right, enough of that. Thank God you didn't see the guy with no head, or the guy with no teeth, or you didn't hear this thing whispering in your ear. It's like, okay, maybe I was lucky. And it's like everybody who lived there had some type of occurrence. It's like, but then why are you telling me nothing was going on?
Have you gone back since?
I will never go back in.
No.
Knowing what I know now and seeing what we've seen. And people like John Zaffis who tell you shouldn't give things like that energy. Yeah, I had enough of it. I wouldn't go back to it.
Frank's saying he had an experience at Mansion 1 when he was there alone. A fan was off, and when he went upstairs, it was on. And when he came, he had to go back downstairs, and he was in the house by himself doing an appraisal. That's what he does for a living, he's appraisal.
Okay.
That's kind of freaky.
One of the phones upstairs, for the longest time, they're the old crank style of phone. You could pick the phone up and you would hear humming in it. Now, they're not connected to anything. They're left there for decoration. Why would the phone still be humming with the charge if there's nothing connected?
Freaky. Pat wants to know, have you ever been to Pilgrim State Psychiatric Hospital?
Not as a guest.
Not as a guest, no. No. Are you familiar with it?
Yes. I don't like going into the sanitariums, hospitals, nursing homes. Over the years, you develop gifts. One of mine is clairsentience. That means you can pick up on energy changes around you. And because you can pick up on it, it means you're giving it off. And when you're like a beacon to the paranormal. If they see you giving it off, they come to it. And
like a lighthouse being in
pretty much.
Right? Yeah.
And if they're filled with sadness, you absorb the sadness. If they're angry, you absorb anger. I mean, they literally drain you. That's why people are like, oh, I want to go to this asylum, or I want to go to that asylum, or this penitentiary. It's like, no, I'm fine. I'll do the daytime walkthrough tour of the 1 hour and we're done, but I'm not going to actually open that door.
What's the one out by, is it Geneva or Batavia? Is that where it is? There's one like out towards Buffalo. There's an old
Is that the Wildwood one, I believe? Wildwood Sanitarium?
I think so. Is that the one Rich was going to? He went to one?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, and he's picked up a lot of stuff. He was telling me about that one.
Also out that way is the Hinsdale House. That's another location I don't think I would go back to. Unless you're filming it for a TV series and I'm in it, but that's...
So there are places that scared the shit out of
yes.
you. Yeah.
There are just things that you don't mess with. I know everybody sees the television shows and they expect the walls bleeding and things are going to lift you. If something lifts me up, you need to run very quickly. That's a lot of energy.
Get the hell out.
But it's like you're messing with the unknown. Don't mess with the unknown. That's why we've always investigated where we go in there and we just record, observe, and report. Don't become part of the history there and draw yourself into a much bigger problem.
You're open to take calls and do investigations all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
How do they get in touch with you if they're interested in having an investigation done?
At this point, I would go through Facebook, Agent Paranormal. We're in the process of getting a website up, and I'm the least technological person out there. I'm the history guy, people. All right, I mess up technology. So they're in the process of getting a new website and all that developed. I've done hundreds of house calls. Those are the ones I actually prefer because then you know you're helping someone. Good, bad, or ugly. 99% of them have nothing to do with the paranormal. I'll just give you, for instance, the newest trend, or people are calling in maybe I shouldn't say this, but they're calling in paranormal investigators to get them to help them break their lease.
What?
So, I got all this activity going on. Can you come to my house? And then a group that doesn't know anybody, or a new group or novice, like, oh my God, man, yeah, you got the portal to hell in your bathroom, and this is going on, and there's like 3 witches, and then the next day they call up their real estate or their landlord, and they're like, I just had a paranormal group here, and they said this place is haunted as hell, and I'm not staying here. And under New York state law, there's something called the New York State Stigmatized Property Law, where you have to disclose all this stuff now. If you're going to buy a house or rent, so they're using that to break their lease. I know we got called into a few at first. You didn't really know what they were doing, and then you catch on and say, because they'll say trigger things like, so I shouldn't live here? Well, I can't tell you where you live. I mean,
yeah, right. I'm not going to make that decision for you, but.
And there's also, over the years, you refine yourself. You learn there's a lot of things you shouldn't say. Like there's a lot of things just leave unsaid because you don't know the level of help the person is actually asking for. Like, for instance, there was a nurse who showed me pictures on her phone. They were orbs, and they were clearly artifacts caused by digital photography on the phone. And she claimed that it was her father who had just passed away, this and that. And I explained to her that it was a digital artifact, which caused her a lot of grief and heartache. And I learned after that, you just look at a photo and say, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a fine
You
line.
don't make that distinction.
Yeah, it's a fine line. Do you talk to mediums often?
No.
No. Do you ever bring a medium?
I'm more of a large.
Do you ever bring a medium on a ghost hunt with you?
We have had them, yes.
Yeah. That's got to be quite a night.
It all depends on the gift and the level that they have. As far as what happens, I mean, when we did the Hulbert House, John Zaffis actually had 3 of his confidants that he uses on a lot of cases, and they're like, they'd never been in the place, had no pictures of it, and they're like, okay, go through this door, maybe take 10 steps, you're going to be in front of this. That's something. And
They knew.
It's like, you've never been in here. How the hell do you know? So you have to sit there and think, what's going on here? Are they actually watching something going on?
Must have been a lot of activity at the Hulbert House, huh?
Very much, yes.
Yeah.
There was another location like the Ruckers that never disappointed. So there's an auction there this weekend.
Is there? They're trying to get rid of it?
I think they're just clearing out the contents at this point.
Gotcha.
If you want to use a medium or psychic or any type of thing, whether you want a reading or a past life, I had a great past life one. That lady scared the hell out of me, but there are locations, like if you're more of a scientific person where you say, oh, I don't believe this crap. There's a little community out towards Buffalo called Lilydale. It's actually the birthplace of spiritualism. Back in the 1840s, the Fox sisters. So they're only open during the summer months. It's a little community on Casadaga Lake. They have wonderful hot dogs. But they also have different types of spiritual people, metaphysical people. And each one of those are licensed to that village. Like, they all have to pass a test before they can practice their craft in there. So I would consider stuff like that a more reliable source. If you go to Salem, Massachusetts, the same thing. All the psychics and all of the practitioners have to be licensed by the city, and they only give out so many licenses. So those people, unless one of them leaves, those people have been doing it for quite a while. So that's the difference between going to Magic Debbie for $15 for a 30-minute reading at a local psychic fair, or having to pay literally $100 or $150 for a half hour. I mean, as much as I don't want to waste money on something like that, I have done the more expensive readings. I know I'm probably going to get murdered now by the psychic mafia, but
mind-blowing stuff, though. And it comes to the point where it's like,
just it's an experience thing. You can tell people who have a gift versus,
and you get what you pay for type of thing.
Exactly.
Magic Debbie compared to the $150 reading type of thing.
Like, you go for a tarot reading. Change is coming your way. Okay, it's life. It's going to change. Right. I don't need to pay you $40 to tell me some type of change is coming. I'm either going to eat in the morning, I'm going to poop my pants, I'm going to win the lottery, something's going to happen. But
you're definitely going to fall asleep at one point.
Again, that's the cynical paranormal investigator.
One more question before we get out of here, because I know you're a little late. You got to go meet up with the wife and whatnot. But if you had the opportunity to time travel, would you?
I would, yes.
You would?
That leads to the other group that actually works at Griffiths, called DARPA.
DARPA?
That's the ones that actually delve into time travel and the black box technology.
Okay.
I forgot what the actual acronym stands for, but DARPA. And that's a show. If you want to do a different show, I'd have to go do some research on that. One of their guys, Chris, I think it's pronounced Basaggio, said when he was a child, he worked for them at the age of 13. They sent him to the Gettysburg Address. He claims to be the young child that appears in the photograph of the Gettysburg Address where Abe Lincoln's in. He accidentally got caught up in the photograph, and he tells the entire story of why he's wearing the clothes he's wearing. And he had some other weird travels where he claims he was with Obama on Mars, that Obama was actually part of DARPA and was a time traveler with. So there's another homework assignment, DARPA.
I got to have you back on that one. I got to have you back because I think Matt Groening, the Simpsons creator, he's definitely a time
There's
traveler.
something there.
There's 100% something there. Like that's too creepy, and just and how he puts it into his show. And I mean, who the hell would predict Donald Trump to ever be president? For real, right?
Many things on there.
And he did like 12 years ago. I mean, crazy.
Well, then it's kind of scary because their first Halloween, didn't we chase away the aliens with a board with a nail in it? So that must be how you defeat aliens.
A board with a nail in it?
Y'all have to keep a board with a nail in it.
Peter, this has been awesome. I could talk to you for about another 5 hours, but you got to get out of here. But one more time, how could people get in touch with you if they're looking to get into investigating or maybe bring you to their home or whatever?
Facebook, Agent Paranormal. I believe Rich said we're going to start going bi-weekly now on the D here.
Yep, Sunday nights.
So Sunday nights, so probably every other week starting March. That'd be another way to call in. Mm-hmm. And we're always here to help. Sunday nights, every other Sunday night, bi-monthly. You can catch Agent Paranormal here on the D, 7 o'clock. And this past Sunday, you had a great episode with John Zaffis, the Haunted Collector from the Sci-Fi Channel. Check that out. Go back into DisruptionNetwork.net, and you can check out that video and that conversation. That was amazing. It was really cool. Oh, he's wonderful. Hopefully we can get an event with him. And yeah, you'll learn how the vocabulary of his that we actually time him how long it's in between swearing.
It's kind of like me.
I can't believe he made it an hour and a half.
And then if anybody's interested too, they're doing a ghost hunt at Rucker Mansion, and that's coming up on April 18th. It's part of the Disruption Network. We're all going to be there. We're going to hang out. We're going to do some taping, and you guys got all your equipment down there, the white noise boxes and all that. So we're going to go down, and it's kind of a disruption event. So come on out if you're interested. There's many different levels. There's a VIP package. There's a regular package. So come and do some ghost hunting with us. April 18th.
Food there.
There's food? Are they going to bring hot dogs in from Lilydale?
I hope so, but they usually put on a good spread, so it's well worth the ticket price. And you're helping a historic location. We need to save these gems because nobody else is going to.
And all the proceeds to benefit the Landmark Society here in Utica. So come on out, support the Landmark Society, come get the shit scared out of you, and come hang out with your boys from the D and Agent Paranormal. We'll have a good time. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
We'd love to see you.
Peter, thank you so much, man. This has been super cool, and I must have you back. So when we get out of here, let's book another one so we could talk about DARPA. That's the one I really want to get into, DARPA and time travel and all that other.
If I don't disappear between then.
Yes, shh, don't say that. Don't say that. You can listen to this podcast and previous podcasts of EC Radio at Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, all pretty much wherever you hear podcasts, or make it easy for yourself and go to disruptionnetwork.net. And then also, thank you so much for watching and paying attention, and like, comment, subscribe, all that social media stuff that you do. Much love to EJA Moving Services, Utica Hemp Company, and also Saranac and Utica Coffee for sponsoring this podcast. And tomorrow, I will see you tomorrow. I don't know what's going on tomorrow. It's not in front of me. Oh, it's tomorrow, Wednesday or Thursday?
Wednesday.
I don't even
Wednesday.
know. So I know Thursday the boys from Break from the Grind are going to be in the house, and they're going to feed us and stuff like that. But I don't know what's going on tomorrow, and I should find out what the hell's going on tomorrow because I never know. Peter,
makes it more fun that way.
I'm lucky I know what day it is today. I never.
Who needs oxygen up there?
Who needs it, right? Peter, thanks again, man. This has been a lot of fun, and we will see you tomorrow. Later.